All right, welcome everyone. We're everyone finding our way in. So as we go forward, everyone's getting so good at using Zoom now. It's very exciting. So everyone is wonderfully on mute, but also when we're screen sharing, it's often hard to see hands raised and things. So do keep questions going through the chat as we go along until we're out of screen share mode. Then I can see you, but thanks for feeling free to add comments and questions in the chat as we go along. So we'll wait another minute or two here and we'll get started. I'll start out a little bit here while we're still letting folks in to say a couple things. One, if you are a seasoned league leader, I see several of you on here, which is great. We love that you're here and love that we continue to learn. And some of these things might seem like, well, I already know that. So thanks for bearing with us as we help to especially provide some insights to some of our newer leaders. But if you're like me, as I get older, reminders are also really helpful. So thanks for being on. All right, I am gonna make Laura a co-host here. Done that yet? All right, so we'll keep letting people in, but in the meantime, I am going to share my screen, get my slides up.
And Michelle, I'll monitor the waiting room.
Oh, that'd be great.
From now on.
Thanks. Woo. Yeah, you get going on all these cylinders, right? All right, so we're going to start with Leadership 101 here. And so want to welcome everyone, especially if you're a newer leader to the league. This will be a really helpful session to you. You'll find that pretty much everything we're going to share today is on our website. So that is a great thing. But do know that all of the slides that you see here today, the recording, and anything we share in the chat will all be made available to you. So you can also just relax and not feel like you have to screenshot everything, and it'll all be made available to you. All right. Okay, so January Jumpstart, again, this is our first January Jumpstart, but our second member leader training. We're trying to do these every year, and our January Jumpstart is just that, to help you as local leaders to jumpstart you into your roles as you plan for, at this time of year, we're planning a lot of programs, we're planning annual meetings, looking at advocacy, and then of course, getting ready in an even year for a lot of voter service. So it's a good time to kind of get reacquainted to all the things in front of us. So we're going to walk through the following things. I'm going to do a little planning review. To me, it's helpful as a visual learner to have a little construct when we think of leadership, like what are we leading? And we sort of think we have sort of these three areas, three pillars to think about. We want to tell you a little bit about where we're at the state league in terms of priorities. We'll review some of the governance resources we have for you, and then how we put all of this in action through our member resources, our various handbooks, and our helpful monthly planning calendar. And then we're going to spend some time at the end too talking about timely things like the session that's right in front of us, our council that we're looking at in April, or that will happen in April, and moving into voter service. So, and then hopefully we'll have a lot of good time at the end too for your questions and sharing and mentoring of others. So I'd like to start with this document. This was created from our Second Century Task Force and our board members working together last year to update our strategic plan, which will goes through this upcoming fiscal year. And we really kind of like the simple way of showing what our priorities are and what we're really working on. And the big pillar is the pillar on the left, which is our lens. Really, there's three big areas that we're focusing on using as a lens in all the work we do. Are we being strategic and using league resources, league principles? What's our mission? Are we relevant? Secondly, being inclusive. Our inclusivity, our diversity, equity, and inclusion lens is strengthening. We're learning more, so we want to be applying that learning appropriately, especially seeking out and building new partnerships. It was so exciting yesterday in our racial justice lunch and learn to see all the new partnerships. I mean, there's dozens of new partnerships that people have made over the last 2 years by just taking this lens to heart. And then sustainability. Obviously, the big other part of the filters we need to bring forward is how do we keep growing? And part of that is telling our story. How do we grow our memberships through telling our stories and through doing what we're doing here today, hopefully, which is training all of you as league leaders, that you are doing the work out there, and we want to help you have all the resources that you can. We think of it too, I think a way of planning is thinking about, we kind of have these three big areas of planning. We're planning for our elections. That's an obvious one often, but we're also planning for our legislative session. But then also that base of annual meetings, council, and convention, that's where most of our questions from local league leaders come from. Questions about bylaws and delegates and planning meetings, leadership succession, membership involvement. So we're spending a lot of time on that sort of foundational piece of the triangle here today. And one way of sort of helping on that foundation is to give you the foundation through, again, these training opportunities. We will be starting the member monthlies in the middle of this year. We hope to preview that at council in April, which would be regular meetings every month that would help orient new league members to what the US and state league do. So we're excited about providing a new resource for membership as well as we go through this first year of this priority. And we wanted to remind you of we have three big or many monthly connecting points for league leaders, and hope that you put these on your calendar and look for these resources. The first one is our president's Zoom meeting, the first Thursday of each month at noon. This is really a great time. And if you can't make it over the lunch hour, we do tape them, but it's really great time for all league presidents, especially, to come and kind of find out about any breaking news and to be able to share information and network. Our all member news, the second Monday of each month, it has come out religiously since I started 5 years ago. So remember, that is a great time to even bookmark to make sure it's not going into your spam. We put everything really important there. Our leader bulletins will send out. We also have other voter service chairs, action chairs, meetings, as you see here, and our climate change task force now. So it's great to get these things on your regular planning calendar and to let your other league members know about it. So we're going to start talking a little bit more now about governance. Oops, sorry, and my little thing bounces around here. And I am going to stop sharing. You're going to share your screen now, right, Laura?
Yeah, I think that'll be easier.
And Laura's going to walk through some of the governance related resources that we have.
All right. I'm just curious, when I'm sharing my screen now, am I also sharing pictures of all of you? Okay, good. So the first thing that I wanted to do is, and some of you may be familiar and know where this stuff is and check it all the time. Others
And Laura,
Yeah,
Really quickly, there is a,
avoid.
no, there is a Word document just behind it that we sort of see. There we go. Now you're set. Good,
All
good.
right.
Okay.
This might be a surprise to some of you where this is or how to find it. So first I want to show you the governance piece of our website. And so this can be found in under about. So about, and the very last, yeah, I'm going to turn all you off. The very last item in the list is governance. And here's where you'll find our annual report, policies and guidelines, bylaws, the sort of the financial stuff that you might need to know, our Form 990, our 501c3 status, and our most recent audit. I want to click on policies and guidance for you. Here's where you'll find some state level policies, generally the finance and the staff and board. But over here on the right hand side, some policies that might apply to your members and your local leagues. Our diversity, equity, and inclusion policy, our member code of conduct, speak with one voice, our non-partisanship policy, some things about advocacy, action and programs, like our coalitions and partnerships, for example. There's a lot of questions usually on those. And then a voting and elections section. So you've got your best practices in staying nonpartisan, candidate participation policy, best practices. You'll also find some of these things in the member resources section, but in this policies and guidelines section is where you'll find a lot of this. So again, not to get too in depth on anything, but just sort of show you where to find things. And now, the next thing I want to show you is the LWVUS League Management site. Now they have just redone their site, so it looks a little different than what you might have seen previously. I think what they've done is a really good job of adding featured content pieces to help you more easily find what you might be looking for here. And what I want to highlight today is the diversity, equity, and inclusion piece. I know a lot of local leagues are looking to either put that into programming or figure out what their local policy might be in looking through things with the DEI lens. So here you'll find a lot of good resources. And what I did find in this new organization that they have for their website is that there's a few layers that you need to go through that maybe weren't there before, but they're meant to be helpful. So let's click here. In fact, Michelle, I couldn't find the slide deck that we saw at convention or
really?
at council last year. Yeah.
It is on our website too. I can show where that is.
Great. So there's a lot of good definitional kinds of things that your league might be able to look at. Continued learning, I think, is where I wanted to. Nope. Well, in any case, I think my point to you today is in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion, don't forget to check the LWVUS site because there's a lot of great information there. And the other thing, just to quickly point out that we put a link here to the Minnesota Council on Nonprofits best practices page. This is a really great resource that we have access to. A lot of different areas you'll see that they have best practices in. It's a great place to check if you've got some initial questions that aren't necessarily league related. All right. Hopping back to our member resources section of our website. Again, this is under local leagues. The last item in the list, member resources. Click on that and this is where you'll find it. I just noticed this tip at the top today as I was going through for this presentation to press Control F keys at the same time so that you can search for keywords on this page. As we continue to add more and more items, this is going to be a more helpful tip to use. So I want to scroll down right now though and show you the league admin section. And these are where you're going to find your administrative resources, like your member update forms, your league leadership change forms that we ask you to submit each time league leadership changes. Other policies and guidance. I'm going to come back to the local league planning calendar. Here's how to sign up for different Facebook groups. Here's where you find the handbooks. We completely redid the league member handbook and made it virtual last year, I believe it was, we finished. So this is, let me click on that. Really a lot of great information here about who the league is, what we do, how we do it, running efficient league meetings, recruiting, engaging, and retaining members, for example, planning member and community education meetings. Just a real wealth of information that you'll find here in our league member handbook. The other handbook we have is the voter service handbook. And that really, it's got an overview section. There's a section here on voter registration, on voting. Here's where you'll find your candidate forum information, and then Vote 411 and voter guides. And then some advocacy toolkits here as well. But I want to go back to the local league planning calendar for a moment. This is something, kudos to Michelle. She spent a lot of time putting this together, and it's meant to sort of give an overview of everything you ought to be thinking about during the year that might be happening either in your local leagues or at the state league, and kind of how these things work together, or maybe LWVUS. So let me scroll down to where we are now. So you can see we're in January. We've got our January Jumpstart training sessions on here. Rosters due at the end of the month. Start planning now for annual meetings. Precinct caucus resolutions are available and distributed by the state office. Michelle, I want to ask you right now if there's things that you want to point out on this calendar too, since you really invested in putting this together.
Yeah, no, this is again the goal here. There used to be, a lot of times there were great resources, the president's calendar, and so it's always hard when you do a calendar, right? You're looking at the whole year, so it's hard to capture everything. But we tried to capture those things that are recurring as much as we could at the time we put the calendar together. And so if there are other things you think of, hey, every year we also have to do this, like anything else, let us know. We could add it to the calendar, but we tried to find those things that are most often recurring for local league leaders to help you think ahead. Oh, that's right, we've got to get ready for this. So
I think it's a really good planning tool to have. And as Michelle said, it's always evolving and changing, and we'll always take suggestions for things that should appear on here. Let me see. So I think that actually covers what I wanted to share. The point is, if you're wondering about something, your first stop should be our member resources page to see if that resource already, or that information already exists for you.
Thanks, Laura.
Sure.
So before we go ahead, we're going to look now a little deeper at some of the things that are right in front of us in terms of some of the issues we're looking at. But any questions so far? If you want to raise your hand. Paul's asking where the MCN information is again, and that is linked on the slide. Our slide deck will be available to you after this. So, and I can go back to that when I pull up my screen here.
Oh, yeah, I'll try to copy the link into the chat.
Okay, okay, thanks. Yeah. Yeah, the Minnesota Council on Nonprofits, we're members, but even without being a member, there's lots of great things just right on their website with regards to governance that are very helpful. All right. All right, so let's look at some of the things that we're looking at right now and get this going. Barb, remember, you have a question?
Is there any information on being a roster manager anywhere on the national or state? I tried to use that hold down of these two buttons at the same time to search, and it didn't work. And maybe it's because roster manager is just not searchable.
So I'm just gonna pull up the other thing here. Sorry. Oops. Okay. Let's see. I got too many screens going. Well, on our member resources page, there is a click on there for roster management. And it's right on the member resources, I think under league admin.
I tried.
Oh, well, let's see. Laura, can you open your, I'm going to stop sharing. If you can open, let's see. If I go.
I can. I think what Barbara's saying is just the search function for some reason didn't work for her.
I don't know about the search function. It's not that far down the page. Here we go. I got back to it now. If we go to local leagues, member resources, if you go to league admin in here, if we look for the let's see where the roster management, I know it's in here, it's a link to the, I'm looking now to always how when you're looking for it, because we had the, oh, that's weird. I wonder if Kristen, I know we literally have been promoting that, so I'll find out. I don't know where it went. I'm looking, league leadership.
Well, the previous roster manager, our treasurer, said that all you have to do is make sure that your active members are correctly updated in the national roster, that you don't have to submit a report of any kind. Is that correct? Am I done having removed the inactives?
I don't know is the short answer. And part of the challenge for us with rosters is literally we have nothing to do with it. It's just the, it's all through US. So you should have received, you know, all the roster managers. The really important thing really is, I'm going here to league admin. If you look at the leadership change form here, it's really important that we know who the roster manager is. So like if you haven't already let us know who that is, because once that information is what goes to the to national, and then they are communicating directly to you. So we really have nothing to do with rosters. It's really hard for us to support you. So you need to use their email as a contact for any questions you have about rosters. So your question is a great question, and it's would be directed directly at their roster thing. But I'll make sure we give you the URL again before we end here. Put it on the chat so that you've got that.
Thank you.
Michelle,
yep.
Oh, sorry, there's a question about President's Call agenda. Could you scroll down to the bottom and click on the President's Call recordings and notes and recordings? And so just click on the 2022.
Sorry, I'm clicking, but
that's okay. And so there's this, the top, click on the top thing, top file. So if you click on the spreadsheet here, this includes both the recording link and the agenda link, you'll see. So we save both of those in case, you know, you don't have the ability, the comment is correct. Sometimes the video or audio is long if you're looking for a specific topic. So you can also get back to the agenda, including all the links as well as a resource for you. Thanks, Michelle.
Yep. Okay. Any other questions before we move forward? Okay. Okay, getting this from Kristen. All right, so moving along then, I want to go to some of the things, right, that we're dealing with right now. So we get probably these top 3 things right here are things we get the most questions about. People will say, hey, we are doing legislative interviews. That's something we do fairly regularly. So a couple of things for newer leaders is that, there certainly are some of these recurring activities that League tends to do. Not that you have to do them, but one of them is the legislative interviews. Oh, sorry, every time I click this. And that is right here. So what that really means is you would have is interviewing your current legislators. And it's really great to have that opportunity to interview your legislators so that, and then we put various questions that are good to ask them. This is an example. And reason why is that then we like to get that feedback from you when you do these local sessions with your legislators, because it helps us know as we're lobbying at the state capitol more about our elected officials. So you at the local level who are interviewing local officials can say, oh, you know what? I mean, I'm using this little example here, would say, oh, I see that Susan Kent really cares about, health or education or whatever it is. All those things really are part of that big equation of doing successful lobbying. So there's a rhythm for doing this, right? The idea of you being able to have these legislative interviews to get good information about the people serving your district, but also to get that information back to us. And that's all in here about how to do the interviews and how to email Nick with that information. We have, like I said, about 34 people that will be lobbying with us this year, League members. So the more we can know about our legislators is wonderful. The other thing we're asked about very frequently is precinct caucus information. And this is, as you know, we try to help people learn about the caucuses. That is a very partisan activity. So sometimes people will say, I thought you were nonpartisan. Well, we are, but we're about elections and most elections are partisan. So we develop our caucus resolutions based on the issues we have. But the idea here is that the League does not bring these forward, individuals bring these forward. So these are resolutions that respond to our positions, that reflect our positions, that you as an individual person going to caucus or your other members, if they really cared about pre-registration for high school students, for example, and I shared this one in our youth engagement webinar. This is a great one if people really care about having automatic voter registration, essentially for high school students, might want to bring this resolution to their precinct caucus and ask that it be put on the party platform. So this is really great. We crowdsourced a lot of these, meaning we asked you as members in All Member News what kinds of issues were important to you. And there's a whole bunch of resolutions here that you can scroll through and look for and bring forward. Again, not as being LWVMN, they're really templates for you as individuals. And people are often confused about that. So if you have any more questions about that, throw those in the chat. But these are great. Again, these are all really good engagement for your local leagues. People are wondering about programming. Well, a lot of our programming is just really, again, about tying your membership into the process that we have around elections, learning and meeting who our legislators are through the interview, participating in your precinct caucus. We totally want people to get involved in their caucus. And Laura, if you can kind of watch the chat and just interrupt if there's any questions too, that'd be awesome.
Sure.
And Barb, did you just raise your hand as well? Oh no, maybe that's showed up as And oh, I'm going to lower your hand. There we go. Okay. The other piece that we are asked a lot about is program, good old program, right? There's like the programs you do to educate people, but then there is our program, meaning our positions and where we're at in our positions and how do we take positions? How do we change positions? These are all very, very good questions. And the best first source really is our program planning guide. Again, this is on our member resources page. And the program for action, it talks all here. This is a quick view of, the fact that our program for action consists of all our different policy positions, over our 100 years. These are our policies that we have studied and decided on. And when it comes time for convention, usually every year, right, we vote on this program again. So we're always reaffirming our program every 2 years at conventions happening in the even years. And so an LWVUS does that also for those positions. So they're getting ready for their convention. And so you as local leagues might get information from Colorado or someone saying, hey, we really wish you would sign on to this position, or because they want to reaffirm, drop, or update an existing policy position. Because when we have our conventions, that's when we do that. So if you do get emails from other states, that's really appropriate. What they're trying to do is get to people who might be delegates to, they're just lobbying us to say, hey, I want you to care about this position and I hope you'll think about it. So those are options for local leagues. Always for local leagues to weigh in on that during that convention year. So we have a lot of positions, so it's really kind of hard to say, are you going to talk about every single position every year? And I know a couple leagues have said, oh my gosh, we do this and it's so hard and so long. But a lot of leagues, there's no requirement to do that, right? The real idea is that we have the opportunity to change, reaffirm, drop, or update our existing policy positions every 2 years in a big way through convention. We do also have an opportunity through council to make some changes, although it's a little more abbreviated. But this is the main program planning kind of guidance for you around how to get things done. The other part is so there's a lot of questions answered here. We could have a whole webinar on program planning, and we probably will sometime soon because it is a big question for people. But I just want to encourage you to really look at this source for now. Also on our website, we have really great resources, again, on program planning under where we stand. All of the positions are here in various forms. We have our program for action. We also have a summary of our positions. And then the impact on issues was totally redone last year. So it's very fresh from LWVUS, which really gives you even more information on our positions, on how to advocate on positions, on the all that good stuff. So again, the things we're talking about, speaking with one voice, what's the difference between advocating and lobbying, or advocacy versus lobbying, applying the DEI lens. So again, these are really great resources all for you in program planning. I realize this can be a real challenging section for all of us.
Michelle, there was a question about where to find those caucus resolution templates on the website.
Yep. So again, Precinct Caucus, pretty much whenever you say, where do I find? Start with local leagues, member resources. That's where most all things live.
And there they are.
And there they are under advocacy, the template caucus resolutions. This is where that program planning guide is. Lots of things related to our advocacy live here on this page. All right, so the next thing I wanted to talk a little bit about is our council meeting. So our council meeting will be April 30th this year, Saturday, April 30th. It'll be a one-day, full-day meeting held virtually. And we, there had been sort of a tradition to hold convention and council in April. But last year when we had convention, we actually did it in June. And that was because we really need time for convention to get a whole lot of things done. And our fiscal year ends March 31st. So there's always this challenge for us in getting ready. But so I just wanted to explain that we went back then to kind of the old protocol here on council. It will be April 30th. And it will feature a parade of local leagues. So we wanted to tell all of you as league leaders, we're really hoping to spend a lot of our time programming wise in council, to hear from all of you and the good work you're doing. Having had the privilege of being part of our Lunch and Learn webinars, I'm just amazed at all the work local leagues are doing. And that's we really want that sharing. It was really fun today to hear Richfield talk about all the work they're doing on climate change. I had no idea how much they were doing. There's just a lot of good ideas out there. And so we're excited. And so for those of you who are leaders in local leagues, please be thinking about this. We'll provide more guidance for you about how to participate in this virtual parade of local leagues, but we're really hoping you will do that and help us also capture the impact you're making and being able to share that within our wider communities. Do I see more questions coming in, Laura? Or are we?
Nope.
Okay. So another question, very frequent question, how do we determine delegate counts? That's another, and we do have this within our council and convention pages. We do keep our pages from council in past and present. We keep those in also linked on our member resources page. So this little worksheet for delegate counts is also available through those council and convention pages. I'll probably just put them on member resources as well. But this is, again, a quick reminder. We have these little cheat sheets out there for you when it comes time for delegate counting. Okay, so LWVUS, there will be a convention in Colorado, and it will be somewhat virtual too. I think they're going to offer both platforms in some way. And all of you can also send people from your local leagues, but that really gets decided after rosters. So once rosters are completed and we have a new count, then they will be able to give you what your delegates are, how many voting delegates can participate in US. All right. Another big question we get very frequently is this one, guidance for local leagues on coalitions and partnerships. So the question about, well, can we partner with Indivisible on this? Can we partner with the chamber on that? And so we've tried, Nick has done a really great job here, I think, of really trying to walk through a series of questions to ask yourself to help determine whether or not that's a good partner. Because a lot of the questions are things like, well, it depends, right? It's nice to have those straightforward things, but unfortunately, whenever we're talking about nonpartisanship, there's a lot of, well, it depends too on the circumstances. And so this is a really good guide to ask yourself and walk through the questions and use the resources again that are there for you. We're also happy to answer those questions and often do, but I really wanted to point out this resource. And it's good to kind of get that rigor for yourself about those partnerships. Okay. Lots here, I know. Next, I wanted to talk about two other things that are up and coming. Of course, our Vote 411 is, we're so excited to be involved in Vote 411 again. We're really gearing up to have just a wonderful set of really maximizing our participation in this resource and having a wonderful set of candidates, hopefully, that will indeed answer their information and be a part of this. What I wanted to say today about this is we learned a lot last year. We were one of the few states to do every single election last year, or 2 years ago in 2020, including, Soil and Water Board. We also did uncontested elections. This year, we're probably not going to have candidate information on those races for which there is no opponent, because we had over 4,000 races, 7,700 candidates in 4,000 races that we were dealing with. So it's a lot of work to put the back end together. But what we're doing this year to help make this a better tool, one will be, we will be able to inform you as local league leaders of those key dates. There'll be dates in June and in August when the filings close, when we're able to send out all our information to candidates to ask them to be part of our voter guide. What you can do as local league leaders is simply to remind them to open their mail, their email, or their paper mail if they don't have an email. Every candidate who has an email is emailed information about how to respond. They have a unique code, so we can't really help them much past that. We want to remind candidates, you will have gotten this email from us. Please find it. Please fill it out. They put in their own information. It really is quite user friendly. But we will be keeping you posted on that, giving you advance warning. But for your planning right now, imagine that this is something that would come to you in June and in August, right before the primary and before the general election. And we only can get it out as fast as we can download it from the Secretary of State's office, because just because someone says they're going to run for office doesn't mean they've, we wait till everyone files and the filing is closed. Once the filing is closed, then we get all that information and we can send it out to all the candidates on an equal basis. So know that it's coming. And again, we're really excited. We'll be working with you to get local league questions too for your local candidates. So please remind your voter service folks to leave some time in their schedule to help us out with Vote 411 this year. And lastly, I wanted to talk about a new web page that we're starting. We kicked it off with our Say Thank You to Local Election Officials. But if you look at the URL up here, lwvmn.org/elections411, we're going to be annotating the full process of how a ballot moves through the electoral system to show why we know our elections are fair and accurate. We're working with the Secretary of State's office right now to edit all the information which we collected when we did a webinar last year with 9 different election officials, election judges, and ballot board members. And we got a transcript of that, and we follow the whole thing through. We will also do some graphic intervention with that, where we're going to have, here's your ballot, here's your little Republican, your little Democrat, and how they all travel together through the process to show people the kind of security that is built into the system. So I wanted to give you a heads up about that. This is going to be rolling out as really just a simple tool for all of you to use in your planning once it's ready. We do have communications interns joining us. And so we're hoping that we can also give you some communications tools to help bring that website to life once we get going on that. And let's see. Okay, before we go into program, any questions so far? That's a lot of information.
There was one question, Michelle, about when U.S. convention is, and it is June 23rd through the 26th.
Thanks, Laura.
Yep.
I also wanted to point out another big question we often get, and people are really thinking about what kind of programs to do as people are kind of remaining virtual and some things. That we had a wonderful Tuesday webinar on democracy. We had Suzanne Wilhite from ERA Minnesota and Jean Massey from Fairvote Minnesota on ranked choice voting. Their presentations were outstanding. Just to give you an update on ERA and ranked choice voting, because we do have 5 cities now using it. She had a lot of really good new information and good tutorials on ranked choice voting. So I'd highly recommend contacting either one of those women. I'm sure would love to hear from your local leagues for programming. Our climate change task force, on our website, you will find links to some outstanding Zoom recordings that we have done that are also great to pick up and use and replay with local leagues. Also, the medical aid in dying or end of life planning resolution that was brought up at convention last year. Rebecca Thoman is wonderful and would love to hear from you again if you would want to do a program with her and her team, as they will be representing that concurrence with the Utah position again at council in April. So just some good current program ideas.
There's a question in the chat about where can we find what delegates will vote on at council, and that information hasn't been fully gathered yet. So it will at some point appear on the website. I don't know if you've got any idea about dates yet, Michelle.
So our council page will open up in mid-February, and we will certainly have a call, an open call to all of you for council in early February. So it's right around the corner here. So you'll hear from us. And lastly, we wanted you, if you haven't already, to meet Violet. Voting Violet is going to be, here she is. She's also being turned into a professional mascot that we hope to use throughout the community to spread the word about our wonderful nonpartisan and one-stop shop for voting information, vote411.org. And our really this came from the idea that during 2020, we had requests from people like the Lynx and Timberwolves about, there was a lot of interest, as there is now, from professional sports, from businesses, a lot of, ethnic fairs and things, that people wanting us to help register voters. But sometimes just putting up a table and saying, hey, is not, we don't always get a lot of interaction at some of those. But when you go out and you see a mascot, we're like, now we're talking that we need to have some visibility, some fun with it, something that kind of also normalizes voting. Unfortunately, I know in some of our greater Minnesota areas, we've had some of our local league leaders who've said even tabling for voter registration that they've been harassed. And so we're hoping little Violet could go out there and maybe make this a little less threatening, but also really, really promoting our vote411.org site this year. So if your local leagues, you'll be hearing more about it, of course, but if your local leagues have specific parades or fairs, especially those, like ethnic fairs and events that Violet could come to, we'd be happy to hear from you. And we'll be working on a way to get her visible and get our message visible across the state this year. We'll probably dip our toe in this year and learn a lot of lessons to be really ready for 2024. All right, any questions? Okay. So we just wanted to leave the last kind of 10-15 minutes here to hear from all of you. I'm going to stop sharing and kind of again, answer any questions about this, and as local leaders, hearing from you about what's working, what's not, what challenges you're having. I know that when we did this in August, there were a few leagues that were really having some succession issues that we worked with that are now doing really well. And so we do have issues, and we try to help you solve them, and would love to get any insights or sharing from you today if anyone wants to chime in. You can just raise, I can see you if you want to raise your hand, either using your reactions button, or if your camera's on, I can see most of you too. Anita Gilly?
Thank you. I'm curious about the program advocacy chair and whether you have position descriptions, or really trying to understand. We haven't had one for several years. We have a lot of advocacy and lots of programs happening, but I think that's a really important position. And I'm curious if you have how that works. I really don't even know. And I don't know if this is the forum to do it, but I think it's so important.
Yeah, so we do talk about the role of, I believe in our member handbook, Anita. So you might want to
Okay.
look there. We does anybody else have a good job description? Because that's something that would be great to share out or to put on our page. Any thoughts out there? So Anita, I will look to and kind of link back rather than share my whole screen top with you again. I'll look back to see, but I know we have a whole section on advocacy in our member handbook, and we do talk about some of those job descriptions. So
Thank you.
any other questions? Thoughts? How about successes? Anybody have any leadership successes they want to share? Things that are going well? We do like to be inspired once in a while, you know. All right, well then I really appreciate everybody's time and learning. If there are things that come up, just continue to reach out to us as you do. We'll also, by putting so many things online, we really are, you know, our hope really is to be able to adapt those much easier than we can a written handbook that you might have, and now it's old and outdated. So we also welcome your keen eye to some of our materials as you're using it. If you see something that you think could be added, we could add an additional resources. I took a lot of notes today about some things we could probably add and link to our member handbook. So please do help us keep it current for all of you as well. All right, thanks everyone. Have a great rest of the evening.
And
Bye-bye.
thanks for all that you do. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.